Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Lauren and I am healing my adrenal fatigue and chronic fatigue by healing emotional wounds, by healing emotional trauma and emotional toxicity from my past, from my early childhood and previous. And I'm sharing my journey of healing these things with you in hopes that it would help you in case you find that emotional toxicity and wounds play a big role for you in your chronic fatigue illness, whatever type it might be. For me, it was my root cause. And you know that it's your root cause when you start to do something, you start to heal something, and you get immediate and significant results. That's a pretty good indicator that you've gotten to a root cause. And that's what happened to me. I started healing emotional stuff. I started delving into this even a little bit June of 2020. So a year and a half ago. And the month that I started doing that, it was July of 2020. And I was seeing leaps forward in my vitality, in my energy. So quickly, I was increasing the number of days that I had that were good, that I felt pretty good, and decreasing the days that I felt awful, just awful. And I could hardly move. I was just this heaviness and sensitivity to foods, digestive problems, just this profound fatigue, the intense brain fog, all these things that come with adrenal fatigue and chronic fatigue syndrome. I was noticing a significant increase in my energy levels. And it wasn't every day, but I had been on this journey for a year and a half prior, more than that. Chronic fatigue for 10 years, adrenal fatigue, severe adrenal fatigue for 2 years. And I had been doing so many things and I was not getting anywhere. I had stabilized because of this nervous system resetting technique, this very specific breathing technique that I had not heard anywhere else, where it's like an elliptical, it's like an ellipse, it's an oval. You go, you breathe, you stay at about 80% or less of your lung capacity in and out. You go up slowly and down slowly. And you keep that pace and you never hold your breath. You never hold your breath at the top. You never hold your breath at the bottom. And it sounds so simple. But this is the only type of breathing that I could do that would calm my body. I did that every day, all day for months and months and months. And I calmed my nervous system to be in a parasympathetic state by default, where I had spent the first, I don't even know when it started, but I had been at least a decade stuck in a sympathetic state, and I just had no idea. And I was getting more and more fatigue. This background fatigue was getting worse and worse, and I had no idea why. I had no idea I was stuck in a sympathetic state. It just felt normal to me, but I was reaching more and more for caffeine and stimulants. I wanted to just be stimulated all the time. That's a good indication that your body has been stuck in a sympathetic state for a long time. So long that it's causing damage to your mitochondria. And so you're getting a down regulation of your mitochondria. They're turning off in a way. Not really. They're switching into cell defense mode from energy production mode. So in a sense, they're turning off. They're turning off energy production, but they're turning on cell defense, which is really important. It's extremely important mechanism for our cells to have. To be able to go in a defense mode if it's being attacked, if it's perceiving, if your cells are perceiving and getting the messages from your brain and the stimulus that you are under threat, then you need to be able to have this mechanism. It's very important. But if you are chronically in this state, then it causes damage because we're not supposed to be in that state for very long. So I had stabilized myself. My adrenal fatigue was not getting worse, and I was in a very rapid, very scary downward spiral. And it took 3 months of doing this technique to stop the crashing, to stop the falling I was in this spiral. And it took a lot of momentum. I always compare it to like a runaway truck going down a mountain road. I had to be applying the brakes for a long time before I actually was able to stop my nervous system from freaking out. It was freaking out. It was panicked. And all the systems in my body were saying, panic, 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 panic. It's time to panic. You know, the body just couldn't handle it anymore. It was too much. My adrenals were just exhausted. And I don't know where you are in your journey, but if you've experienced that, let me tell you, this breathing technique works. I looked everywhere. There was nothing else that worked. And this is the first step that you have to do in order to start healing your adrenal fatigue successfully. I know there are a lot of people that start with the supplements, start with other protocols and techniques. And what I see again and again, what happens is they might help, but then they get stuck. And they're not getting any better, or they get better for a while and then they start getting worse again. I couldn't do that at all. I couldn't take it. I couldn't do any. I tried so many protocols and things and supplements and things to help my body, support my body, and everything made me worse. But I know there are a lot of people that take these things and they feel better for a while. And they help, like adaptogens and things. They feel better for a while. But the problem is if that is not your root cause, if you have not gotten the root cause, putting an adaptogen on your protocol just isn't going to cut it. It isn't going to cut it. Your adrenals are still potentially going to continue to get worse, even though you're supporting them in this physical way. But the energetic, our adrenals and all of our organs, our entire body system works on energy and electricity. Those are related much more first before the chemical, before the biological. It's all energy. This is what I've learned in this illness. It's all energy first. Now, if you don't have an energetic problem, if you don't have an emotional problem, then the biological and the chemical inputs will help you. If your root cause honestly is a nutritional deficiency, a toxicity that's caused from some exposure, if that is your root cause, then those things will help you. Some sort of electrolyte imbalance. But what my experience is that those are symptoms. And so often what is missed and what is not understood is that the energy, the energetics behind those things are what the actual root cause is. So the energetics, there's a problem in your energy system. And having an energetic problem for a long enough time begins to cause physical problems. One way to understand this is, and I don't know if I've actually explained this before on this channel, so I'm going to explain it now. So how does this connection really work? So it all relates to the chakras, the chakra systems. And so it's very helpful to understand the chakras. So if you're familiar with the chakras, we have 7 chakras at various points in our body. They go up the midline of the body from the base of your tailbone to the top of your crown. There are other ones that people talk about. People talk about it like a 12 chakra system, but those go down like beneath the earth and above you in the sky. But I'm just going to talk about the 7 chakra system. Those are the ones that are actually in your body. Think of it as a wheel, I like to think of it as a spiraling energy center that's like glowing with light and energy. And we have these at these points in our body, and they are what create energy and pull energy and keep energy moving in that area of the body. So they have a profound impact on the organs that are directly in that location. So if your energy system gets out of balance from something, so in my case, I talk about emotional toxicity and trauma. These can impact and change the way your chakras function. They weaken them. They can cause imbalances, distortions, weakness. I like to picture it's almost like this spiraling ball of light that you can feel the energy there. And each chakra is associated with a color. So my image is this spiraling ball of light that's just going so rapidly, and it's that color, whatever color it is. So your throat chakra is light blue. Your solar plexus is yellow. Your heart chakra is green, for example. And you can easily look up, if you're not familiar with the 7 chakra system, you can easily look up what those are. But just imagine as if you think about any energy system. So if you think about the sun, that emits a tremendous amount of heat energy. So what would happen to a sphere, a spiraling ball of light and color that's creating immense amounts of energy? What would happen to the way it looked if it was weakened? In my mind, the spiraling slows down. The light gets a little dimmer. The color is not as profound. So each chakra is in a location in the body. And what if those chakras provide energy to the systems, and between them to the systems in that area of your body? The organs, the glands, and all the electrical systems that go between the chakras as well. Well, what if you have wounds, emotional trauma that have literally wounded the actual chakra, have affected the way that the chakra can emit energy? That chakra is going to slow down. It's not going to be spiraling as fast. It's going to be slowing down over time. And then so what's going to happen to the organs in that area? They're going to start slowing down too. So over time, they slowly, if you have a fundamental wound, tangle, energetic stagnation in a ball of energy, that you could imagine it as now it's a ball of energy, and now then there's this point, this black spot. There's something there. And so it's distorting, it's messing up what that energy ball can do and how it communicates to the other chakras, the other energy centers in your body. So over time, you get physical responses, your organs, your glands, the whole systems, the communications between the systems start to get weaker, get slower, start to break down a little bit. And it takes to get to a certain threshold, and that's when you start noticing a symptom. This is one way of looking at it. I like to describe, because energetic rooted illnesses are not a common topic, I don't have one single way of describing them. This is what I have learned, how I have deciphered the information that I have gained in this illness as I've healed it, and the information that I've gotten from other people that I've pieced together to do that. I don't know if any other people describe this mechanism, but this is a mechanism. Absolutely 100%. There's no question there. There's so many spiritual people out there that know this connection. That when you have an energetic problem, that it causes physical damage. But I've never really heard anybody break it down. So that's what I'm trying to do here. This is one way that I understand it. The other way that I understand it, think about it in terms of mitochondria. If you have an emotional trauma that from your early life, and if you believe in past lives, it could be from there. If you don't believe in past lives, then it's just your early life. Prior to 7, probably prior to 5, maybe prior to 3. When trauma, whether it's a big T trauma or little t trauma, big T trauma is a big event, some kind of abuse, something traumatic happens like on a day. Or little t trauma, which is a very subtle yet has the same impact on the brain type of trauma, where it's an experiential trauma. It's your chronic experience every day. And for me, I think mostly about attachment trauma, because that's what I've linked my wounds to. Attachment trauma is with one particular person, one relationship, and it's going to be a primary caregiver, because those are the people that we get the most information from. That's where we get all the information that we need. We're being programmed with the information that's like, what is the world going to bring to me? We need to go, we're in this download phase in the first 7 years. We're in theta brainwaves for the first 7 years of our lives to download the information that we need to survive this world. And so we're in this download mode. And if we have a caregiver that we do not feel emotionally safe with, safe, I mean secure, like their love is unbound, unpenetrable. They'll be there, they'll protect you, they fulfill all the sort of emotional needs that you have. And we all come into this world with different emotional needs based on our personality, based on our genetics, based on our astrology and numerology, which is what I believe in, based on our past lives, which I also believe in. But only because of this illness, I never believed in these things before. So if you're in a place that you don't believe in those things and you're like, what is this lady talking about? I'll just preface it with saying this illness and the recovery of this illness has proven these things. They're right. These things are always right. I believe it so strongly now because they explain so much about my experience and my experience with spirituality, my experience with this illness, and my experience in life since I was 30. Spirituality is what has brought healing to me, basically. It's the way of spiritual healing that cultivates body and mind and spirit practices. It's the only way that I have discovered to get true healing. I believe both. So spiritual things don't heal it for me. Spiritual things alone do not heal it for me. Psychology does not alone heal it for me. I'm talking about any wound, any deep set wound from my early life. Neither of these things alone have brought me full healing of a wound or toxicity of any kind. That is my honest experience. But putting them together is what has brought me the healing. And that's what I am so passionate about sharing with you, how to do this. Because if you have the same or similar energetic roots to your illness, I feel very strongly that you need these tools. Of course, only if they resonate with you, but I believe so strongly in the effectiveness of these tools. Going back, I was going to explain this other way that I see this illness related to energetics and what's happening with the mitochondria. So at its core, adrenal fatigue and chronic fatigue are mitochondria dysfunction. That's what it is. People argue with the name adrenal fatigue because, well, it's a bad name. Your adrenals are tired in a way, but it's actually coming from the brain. If the information is actually coming from the brain to slow down. It's not the adrenals that are actually they can't pump out any more cortisol. And so that's adrenal insufficiency. And that's not this. This is when your brain is actually telling your adrenals to stop putting out these hormones and these neurotransmitters and these chemicals because it's not working anymore. It's stepping up. It's like stepping up the level of protection. So what's happening is if you have trauma or emotional toxicity that can be stemmed from your early life, most of those emotions, those toxic emotions that come from traumatic events, I'm talking specifically about shame, helplessness, and powerlessness. You can also include anger and rage in there. If you have trauma and pain around in those emotions, if those emotions get trapped in your body, you can so easily get stuck in a fear state, also known as a sympathetic state. So I like to think the core wound is the emotion. Let's say it's shame and helplessness and powerlessness, which I often say together. There are nuanced differences, but they're also very similar. And that's why I named them differently. I always include both because there are nuanced differences, but they also go together in a lot of ways too. So that's why I'm putting those together. So let's say you've got a core wound that you have those emotions that are trapped and they are deep and they are pervasive in so many areas of your life because it was an early life wound, so it is core to who you are. There's a belief, so that's the wound, and it got trapped because you couldn't deal as a little child. You do not have the emotional capacity to know how to deal with those intense emotions. Helplessness, powerlessness, shame, wow, those are some of the most intense emotions. And they're the most difficult to cope with even as an adult. I mean, by far. People don't even like the word shame. The word shame makes people feel ashamed. I mean, isn't that true? And people hate helplessness. It makes, when I first, I've said this before, but when I first was learning about helplessness and that I might have some learned helplessness, oh my gosh, the shame, and I couldn't even look. It was so ugly to me. It was so abhorrent. And you might, if you associate, this is partially cultural related. We don't want to talk about these things. Oh, they're so unpleasant. They're so unpleasant. And they are. They're so unpleasant. They're so difficult to know how to deal with. But the thing is, we all experience these emotions at some point in our lives. And if we had something really profound that made us feel like this in a habitual way, or in a very, very traumatic event in our early life, that trauma embeds in the body. That wound, that emotion embeds in the body. And we couldn't deal with it, so we had to just bury it. When we were children, we couldn't deal with it, so we had to bury it. Well then, if you've heard this idea of the thing that, the shadow side of us is actually what takes over our lives. The thing that we don't want to see about ourselves, the emotions that we don't want to feel, the things that we turn away from, hide, are disgusted by in other people, like the things that we don't want to see in ourselves are the things that leak and pervade into your entire existence, so you can never escape. It's terrible. But actually, I believe it's amazing, because I believe this idea that your soul is always putting new opportunities in front of you to learn, to see that this is here. This is something. There's something here. And I'll show it to you this way and that way and this way and that way and this way and that way. And I'll just keep showing it until you see it. Until you see it and heal it. See it, become conscious of it, and heal it with love and acceptance. I say that like it's easy. It's not easy. Oh, just love yourself. Just accept yourself. It is not that easy, especially when you have these wounds. Actually, it's impossible. If you have these wounds, it's impossible. You have to feel and heal the wounds first. Before you can gain true love, true acceptance of yourself, you have to heal the wounds. If you struggle with self-love, if you struggle with self-acceptance, if you have a lot of self-criticism, you have wounds to heal. I promise. I promise. And I'm not judging. I still have tons to heal. But every time I heal something, it gets proven to me again that this is true. This is true. And this is known. But it is not really known in just the vast majority of conscious knowledge in our culture. It's just not. So, we're talking about it now. So, back to this wound. This core wound. You've got core wounds around helplessness, powerlessness, and shame. Those at their core, those emotions have a direct link with fear. Every time you feel that emotion, whether it's related to trauma or not, it evokes the sympathetic response. It's automatic. So what happens if you have tons of those, like just years and years and years of this embedded wound of helplessness, powerlessness, and shame from some attachment wound, some traumatic event, some kind of trauma? If you have this core, it's stuck in you. Well, then what else is stuck? A part of you becomes stuck in the fear state. Every time that wound is poked, the sympathetic response is evoked, is prompted, it starts. Actually, I want to pause there for a minute and to take that in. Every time that's poked, the sympathetic response is prompted, is sparked. So, what happens if that emotion, that wound, is poked every day, multiple times a day, again and again and again and again and again and again and again? You will be being set into the sympathetic response again and again, and eventually it becomes all day. It's constant. Because if you have, especially, so what I know the most about, because it happened to me, is attachment trauma. So what if you have an attachment trauma? If you have an attachment trauma, there is probably a dynamic that created that wound that you may have made a blanket belief about every relational dynamic. Well, unless you're a hermit, and even then you're still in a relationship with yourself, you interact with people all the time. What if you have beliefs about yourself and your beliefs about the world and the beliefs about other people, in which every time you interact with another person or interact with yourself by the self-talk, the things that you say to yourself because of the beliefs that are because of the wounds, they happen all the time. It's constant. You're getting a constant threat signal is really what's happening, because you have beliefs, you have these core unconscious beliefs about yourself and about the world and about other people that stem from that wound. That's how everything works. We have a wound, and beliefs stem from our early life experience, whether it's wound or whether it's positive and loving and secure and safe. Then you develop beliefs about the world and yourself and others. But if you have an area in which you are extremely wounded and in pain, but it's unconscious, that's when it wreaks havoc, because you're not even conscious of this fact. When it happens in early childhood, your personality is created in those years while you have this wound. So these responses to the world and yourself and others, and maybe your performance in the world, the way people react to you, daily interactions with people, it might be especially triggered with certain people, like when you're an adult and you get into a significant other relationship. It depends on your specific relational or childhood trauma and wounding, which ones are going to affect you more profoundly and which ones you're going to struggle with the most. But if it's unconscious and it's there, then you are getting a sympathetic response. It might be subtle, and you might be able to go back. But over time, you start getting this threat signal all the time. That information is being sent to all of your cells. And mitochondria are within your cells. So in essence, your mitochondria are getting that information too. That you're under threat all the time. This world is not safe. You are not safe. You are not loved. You're not loved unconditionally. You are loved if, and only if. So if you don't do that, then you won't get loved. You won't be loved. You won't be safe. These are unconscious beliefs. They come out as symptoms, like behavioral symptoms and personality symptoms, before they turn into physical symptoms. But you're getting this information constantly. Every time you interact, you have an interaction that evokes this wound. Your mitochondria are constantly getting signals that you are under threat. And over time, if a mitochondria gets that signal enough times, it is going to shut off energy production mode and switch into cell defense mode. And when you have that happen long enough, if you don't know this about yourself, you don't know you have these wounds, and you don't know where to look, never heard this information, this never would have occurred to me that this was happening. This never would have occurred to me that this was the cause of my growing fatigue. And not just the growing fatigue, but the symptoms that come with your organs becoming fatigued. So your mitochondria are concentrated in certain organs, the ones that take the most energy. Your muscles, your brain, your liver. If you get enough mitochondria that are switching into cell defense modes out of energy production mode, then these systems are going to be the first ones to develop symptoms. These organs and systems are slowing down. You're going to have digestive problems. You're going to develop some brain fog or brain slowness or headaches. You're going to develop muscle fatigue, just entire body fatigue, brain fatigue. Even if you don't have brain fog, it's just like fatigue after the day. Like a day of using your brain all day is just like exhausting. Then your muscles are always getting exhausted. They don't recover from exercise. Your digestion is slowing. And when your digestion slows, this is where you really get into trouble, because your digestive system is this well-oiled machine when all your chakras are humming along and they have all the energy and they're connected and they're, communicating and all's flowing well and it's moving things quickly through your digestion. Well, if your digestive organs start to slow down, the food that passes through your digestive system also starts to slow down. And that is not good. That is when you get all kinds of digestive problems. You can take on parasites, you can take on yeast overgrowth like candida, you can take on mold, and your immune system's another one that takes a ton of energy and mitochondria to function properly. So then your immune system slows down. You don't have the same response to things that enter your body. So mold, for example, you might take on viral infections, Epstein-Barr, you might have Lyme disease. You even if you're exposed just to the same stuff that other people are exposed to, you start taking the stuff on. You can't expel it properly from your body where other people can. Then you start getting genes turning on and turning off, because genes, that's epigenetics. Genes turning on and off are impacted by your environment. And if your environment is constantly telling you that you're under threat, this is a dangerous world, and all the other things in your body are then reinforcing that, because then you take on more toxicity. Yeast overgrowth and mold and Lyme and parasites, oh my God, they produce so much biological toxicity in your body. Well, now you're on a runaway train, and you just keep getting worse and worse and worse, sicker and sicker and sicker, and you don't know what to do. This is what happens. And at some point, what often happens when you develop profound fatigue is that actually it forces you to constrict your life. You stop drinking, you go on a clean diet, you start resting more, you eliminate stress, you start working on your relationships to make them less toxic, you sort of eliminate toxic dynamics in relationships. You might start doing saunas, you might start doing cleanses, you might start doing, there are all these things. These things are band-aids. And band-aids are good. We need band-aids. When your body is deteriorating, band-aids are great. But the problem is, so we shrink our lives. We stop going out as much. We're tired all the time. Our life shrinks. We stay at home a lot. We take out the external world a little bit. What actually ends up happening is you have to remove the external world to try to get better, because you start researching. It's like, well, what can I do? What can I do to get better? And what you find is you need all these practices and the fatigue and everything that goes along with it. You can't eat out anymore. You can't eat clean out. And then you might not even be able to work. Then you not only can't afford to go out, but now you don't have those social interactions with your job too. So your world shrinks and shrinks and shrinks. But the positive about that is actually then you stop getting as many signals that the world is threatening to you. You work on your mindset. You might work on cognitive behavioral stuff, working on your thoughts and your mindset and, being at peace. You might do these things that are really important, but they don't get to the root cause if your root cause is what I'm saying. These toxic emotions, these wounds from your early life that have embedded now your entire physiology now. Went from your energy system to your physiology over time through the way that I'm describing. So now you've shrunk your world, and now you're not getting as many messages. So a lot of people do experience that they stop getting worse. These things help. They're not getting worse anymore. And so they stay in this cocoon. I always thought of it as a cocoon. Or I later thought of it as a cocoon. And what hurts my heart is when people get stuck in this cocoon. Because every time they think they're getting a little better and they start to expand their world again, all this threat comes back and they get worse and their nervous system's activated again. And so what I found and what I believe so strongly is that the way to get better is use this cocoon. Use this beautiful cocoon, because think of it as this nurturing cocoon. You've created this cocoon to stop getting worse, and now you can use it to get better. You might have less responsibility. You might have just less obligation, less, expectation from other people. And now's your chance to focus on yourself, to focus and go deep. first to rewire your nervous system with the breathing technique that I first discussed in the beginning. And then when your nervous system, and only when your nervous system is calm and you are default in the parasympathetic state, you are still going to be exhausted. But you are not going to be getting worse. You're not going to be under threat. It is safe, and you will not have the anxiety. You will not have the sleep problems. You will be getting stable. Now, and only now, again, you cannot start the emotional work before the nervous system stuff, because that will get you worse. Your nervous system has to be calm first. Then you start on the emotional work, and you start looking at, or just letting, because once your nervous system's calm, stuff is just going to come up on its own. It just is. And at first, it might be surface level stuff. It might be these random conversations that pop up into your head that you don't realize you still have an emotional hurt there, and you don't know why. It's like, this seems so random. I mean, that's not that couldn't be causing this illness. The thing is, when later things are very upsetting to you, it's usually because like a conversation in your adult life is very upsetting to you, and it seems from the outside very mild and benign. It's because it's triggering, in a very subtle way or an obvious way, it's triggering that same wound, the childhood wound, the core wound that's in your core self. So you can actually use these, when these things, these conversations, these incidences, these experiences, like there was this presentation that I made that was it was the most shaming. I just messed it up. I messed it all up. I couldn't remember anything, and I went into panic mode, and I felt shame, and for years, I felt such profound shame about this thing. You can use incidences like that where you just can't let it go. It's like, it's always, if you ever think about it, it's like, oh, I can't think about that. If it makes you cringe and want to die inside, it's not because that event was traumatic. Maybe it was, but the only reason that event was traumatic when it shouldn't otherwise have been traumatic, or it's like embedded, it's upsetting to you, there's still emotional content there, like intense emotional content. It's because it's triggering the same wound that's at your core. And so you can use that information. If you feel shame about a certain thing, then you can tell you have a core wound of shame. If that's the emotion that just irks at you, and it makes you you can't even see it, you can't think it, you can't feel it. You don't want to talk about it. It's like too much. It's like, I can't even bear that. I can't even bear to think about it. The problem is, if you keep shoving it away, it's going to keep staying in your life. And it's going to keep invading your life more and more and more. And for many people, this happens in the physical. It eventually embeds your physical as well. Not just your mind, not just your emotions, but your physical body. That's what I believe happens with so many people with chronic fatigue illnesses. Not everybody, necessarily. I'm not saying that's everybody, but I think this is so often the case and not addressed. Maybe ever. Maybe people are able to get well enough to a certain point where they just stop looking. They stop searching. They just accept that this is where my health is going to be, and I can't get any more energy than that. This illness has just changed my ability to have energy. I don't believe that's true. If that's the case, then there's still more looking to do. So I wanted to go through that mechanism today. I wanted to go through how energetics actually impact the physical. Because we're trained to think of them as separate, or to not think about the energy at all, or emotions as this separate thing that's like petty, or they're not really important. And I have found that emotions are like the most important guide of life, especially when you want to live a life of spiritual alignment, self-alignment, being in touch with yourself, being healthy and vital. And if you're watching this channel and you have a fatigue illness, that's what you want. I know that that's true. You want vitality. You want your energy back. You want your eyes to sparkle again. You want to be excited about your life. You want to be able to use your brain and your body the way you know is possible. I know this. And this is how. We've got to align the energy and the physical and heal the wounds that have created these energetic tangles and distortions and disruptions and blockages, and however you want to say it, whatever word works for you, weakening the chakras. People talk about it in different ways, chakras being blocked or weakened or slowed, or there are many different ways of talking about it. It doesn't really matter. They all mean the same thing. Something's going wrong. It's not functioning like it's supposed to function. That's when, if you have that in a chronic way and you're triggering the sympathetic state in a chronic way because of these wounds in your core, that causes a cascade of physical damage to your body, specifically with the mitochondria, and that is what causes fatigue illnesses. So I hope you found this interesting. I hope you found me clear in my attempts to explain these things the way I understand them. And I hope you all have a beautiful rest of your day, and I will see you on the next video.